Welcome, everybody. My name is Colton from Zimtu Capital. Today, I'm here with the CEO of Homerun Resources, Brian Leeners. Brian, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Colton. Appreciate you having us on.
So we've been familiar with your company for a while now, but our audience may not. So we'll just jump right into it. So Homerun recently transitioned to the focus on the silica market. So can you tell us why you made that transition?
Yeah, we've always been looking as a group, as an organization. We've always looked for materials that have a lot of uses across multiple industries. And now in this energy transition that we're in, our two favorites are copper and silica. I won't get into copper, but the reality of the silica market is that it's probably the #1 element in the solar space as far as being a base raw material for both the glass and for the silicon. And then, in other areas, in particular in energy storage, which is some stuff that we're working on going forward, it's going to get fairly well known because silica has amazing thermal properties relative to storing heat over long periods of time. So we're pretty excited about that. And then you layer in, the traditional markets for silica. We see a pretty good growth prospect in the traditional markets, and then obviously a much higher growth prospect relative to the energy transition.
Yeah, and you mentioned silica being used in solar and some of the traditional areas. So what are the primary uses for silica, and maybe what are some of those niche uses?
Literally everything. It's funny, I've seen some old videos where people say, oh yeah, I don't want oil in my life anymore, and then all of a sudden they remove everything in existence that's made from oil, and it's a naked person standing in a forest. So silica is quite similar to that in the sense that it's across a lot of industries. In the glass space, obviously that's what everyone knows it for, because silica is the basis for glass. But even within the glass space, there's multiple categories. The higher the grade of silica, the more value it has, from raw material at say $30, $20, all the way up into very high grade material in the $500 to $1,000 range, just for the silica as a raw input. It's used in the coating space. It's used in the automobile space. Again, not just for glass, but it's in your tires. It's in the paint. It's in your electronics. In your house, it's everywhere. It's a dominant material that doesn't get a lot of attention. I think the reason why is it's because it's not very sexy. It's not lithium. But the reality is it's actually more important than lithium, because if you took silicon out of your life, it would be quite difficult. If you took lithium out of your life, you'd just use another material that may not be as good as lithium, but does the same thing. So it's an interesting material. It has interesting physical properties, and in the energy transformation, it has tremendous application. And those verticals, we're in an industrial revolution right now, and those verticals are brand new, relatively speaking. And so in that context, with what's going on in solar, even though it's been around for a while, it's now becoming very standard as a source of energy, and that's just going to continue. And then, the next thing behind alternative energy is obviously storage, which has to go in parallel, because you're not going to solve this problem with just generation. And silica has tremendous physical properties within the context of that space as well, from chemical batteries all the way, like I said, to the use in thermal energy storage, which is heating the silica and having it hold that charge or that heat for a period of time.
Right. So it's, like you said, it's basically in everything. So then I would assume the industry is very large. So how big is the industry, and maybe what's the growth trajectory for the silica market in this green transition?
It's tens of billions of dollars to hundreds of billions of dollars, depending on how you break it down. There's raw sand used in your golf course, for instance.
Right.
So it's a huge market. It's difficult to put a total dollar value on it. The one thing that's important to understand with silica is, it's in a pyramid of quality. And so as you get higher and higher grade uses for the product, the market gets smaller and smaller, but the price point goes up exponentially.
Right.
So within the solar space, it's probably around 10 to 15% of the cost of solar, if not higher. Part of that's geographic, because moving glass is really expensive. So from the perspective of North American manufacturers in solar, they're getting their glass from China. 95% of that glass is coming from China. So what you're paying for the product, you're paying almost double that for transportation costs. So there's plenty of opportunity for the market to grow based on the regionalization of supply chains that's going on right now. So the growth isn't even, the growth is occurring regionally, whereas historically, like most elements, the Chinese have dominated the space. Yeah. That is currently in transition and will be radically transformed, we believe, over the next 10 or 20 years, with the Europeans controlling their supply chains, and the Americas controlling theirs, and the APAC region controlling theirs.
Well, that's actually really interesting. So, talking about the industry and the market itself, maybe you can give us an idea of how Homerun plans to kind of intercept this market and moving forward.
Well, I've kind of alluded to it, but I'll let news releases speak for it. What we've done is looked at, the first step in any vertical when you're dealing with the material space is to secure a path to the material. So we've put those plans in place and are currently in the process of executing on them, while at the same time we're doing the business development that's required to move that product into those verticals. And again, the established markets are relatively easy to access, because someone who makes silica tiles will tell you what their specs are. You meet those specs. If your transportation costs work on their, within their economics, then you can become a supplier to that customer in the traditional space. In the new areas, there's a whole pile of opportunity relative to new technologies and helping to advance those technologies. So it's great, because historically our organization has been involved in technology and materials. And for the first time, literally in 30 years of doing what we do, we see a combination of materials and technology like we've never seen before to solve these energy transition problems. Because obviously these are acute issues, and within that context, we're really focused on trying to be a leader in those energy transition verticals, and there's an opportunity for that, because anytime there's disruption in any industry, a new player can arrive and become a big player in that industry, and we've seen that in the past.
Well, that's very exciting, and I know it sounds like you're going to have some news releases in the upcoming future to look forward to, so we will be looking for that. Is there anything you wanted to update shareholders on before we see some new information come out shortly?
Yeah, we've recently exercised some warrants, so we're nicely capitalized relative to what our short-term business objectives are. We want to thank our shareholders for their support. The company, from an investment perspective, has performed quite well since we started this transition, and now we're in that path of starting to deliver the events that we're working on into that. And we believe that if you look out 6, 12, 18, 24 months, you're going to see that we're going to end up being a leader in this space, especially relative to the new areas that we've talked about in this interview.
Well, I know everybody at Zimtu is really excited. Our shareholders and network will be happy to see this, and we'll make sure to keep everybody updated with news as it comes out. So, Brian, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll hear from you shortly.
Thank you very much, and we greatly appreciate your support.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
You too.